What's up, guys? Thanks for coming by to my ranking for Fox's X-Men franchise, ranking all 12 X-Men movies from worst to best. Before I get started, let me know in the comments below, how would you rank the 12 X-Men movies, and are you excited for Disney to take over for the future of the X-Men films? And don't forget, click on that subscribe button, click on that bell notification to hear any more content from me for your future enjoyment. So these X-Men movies I have loved, for better or for worse. So without further ado, let's get started with number 12, X-Men Origins, Wolverine. By far my least favorite film out of all the X-Men movies. This one ruined the Wolverine story overall. Not only that, but they add so many characters in this film that I felt that it's unnecessary. Good example, Gambit. Great character, but needed to have a bigger role in probably another movie. The special effects, very disappointing. I mean, look at the claws on Wolverine in some of these scenes. I'm surprised they got by with making this type of movie with those type of visual effects. Though the action scenes sometimes are pretty entertaining, overall, it feels like it was missing something, and I think it was most of the storyline needed to be better executed. The only thing that really saved this movie in the end were the great performances, of course, by Hugh Jackman and Liev Schreiber, that gave a surprisingly good performance as Sabretooth. At number 11 is The Last Stand. This was the first attempt in the Dark Phoenix storyline. They combined two storylines in a film that was less than an hour and 40 minutes. You have the Dark Phoenix saga, and you have the story of The Cure, which was another comic book story in the X-Men franchise. And when you combine too many stories like that in such a short amount of time, it messes up so much. And also with this film, once again, adding so many characters, which was great to see, especially me being a big X-Men fan, but seeing that many characters in that type of film didn't really give a lot of character development. The special effects, they were okay. The action scenes, all right. It was entertaining at the time, but as you look at it now, it's something that was really disappointing when they really were thinking this was going to be the end of the X-Men. And thank God it wasn't, because we ended up getting a lot better movies than this one in the future. At number 10 is the last installment of Fox's franchise, The Dark Phoenix. If you already saw my review, you pretty much know how I felt about this movie. I was deeply disappointed. This was their second attempt to do the Dark Phoenix saga. I felt they messed it up again. I felt some of the action was great overall. The visual effects were pretty good. The music was the one thing I loved the most about this movie. Hans Zimmer was a master at composing the score. The acting was good. I liked Sophie Turner. It's just that the story, I felt they botched it up again. And some of the scenes, some of the set pieces felt very closed offish. You're either in a train, you're in a building, you're in the X-Mansion, nothing wide open. It didn't have that epic feel. Only with the opening scenes when they're on that mission to space, when they're saving the astronauts, that was the most epicness I felt in this film. And as it being the last film in the franchise, it felt very underwhelming and very unsatisfying. And this is the movie that made me feel I think is better off in Disney's hands. Coming in at number 9 is X-Men Apocalypse. Now I will give this movie some slack. The action's great. I like how it takes place in the 80s. And I do like the villain Apocalypse, but everything they did with this film was kind of a letdown. The movie's a bit overlong. It should have been maybe 15 minutes shorter, cutting a few scenes to make the film flow a little bit better. And the villain Apocalypse, though I like him, I felt he was a bit one-dimensional in this movie. I feel that his mission was a bit generic, even though that is kind of like how it is in the comic books. They could have executed it a bit better, and with an actor like Oscar Isaacs, a great actor, they should have given him a bit more better material to work with. And along with other characters like the X-Men, I feel that a lot of them were in the background of this movie, such as Storm, Cyclops, and Jean. They're being introduced in this movie, but I felt they should have been having more time on the screen. And as usual, you got Professor X, Magneto, and Mystique as the main roles as usual. So I felt, though it was somewhat entertaining, I was a little disappointed, especially since this was going to be the follow-up to Days of the Future Past. Coming in at number 8 is Deadpool 2. Now, I like this movie, I really did. I just feel that I like the next 7 films a whole lot more, but it was entertaining to say the least. After seeing the first Deadpool movie, my expectations were really high. It didn't quite meet them when I saw this film, but it was still fun in the end. Ryan Reynolds does an amazing job, of course, as Deadpool. Josh Brolin, I can't think of anyone else to play Cable, but the action was great, the scenario was funny, and you got still a lot of cameos from the X-Men, something that I enjoyed seeing. And now with Disney officially owning Deadpool, we'll get to see where they take Deadpool 3 in the upcoming future. At number 7 is The Wolverine. Now, I don't know why a lot of people hate on this film. I personally like it. It's a nice breather between First Class and Days of Future Past. It's really a great improvement over X-Men Origins Wolverine. It's directed by James Mangold that would give us Logan. It has Wolverine going off on a solo mission in Japan, and it's right after Last Stand, after he's grieving over the death of Jean Grey, and you really feel his performance in this movie just as much as you do in Logan, in any of the movies that he's done, but this one really is a hidden gem. I like the action. It's the type of story where there is action, but there's a lot of talking too, but it's still very entertaining to watch. It's one that I wouldn't mind watching over and over again. Granted, yes, the third act can be a little bit cartoonish compared to the rest of the movie, but overall, I don't think that takes away the spectacle of what this movie is in terms of its storytelling. Coming in number 6 is the original X-Men released in 2000. Now, I feel some people take this movie for granted or maybe just forgot about it totally. And we have to realize this is the movie that began this whole superhero craze of the 21st century. Without it, it's possible we wouldn't have the successful Spider-Man or even the MCU. Maybe, maybe not, but we all have to agree, this is what started it all. It is a little bit outdated. If it came out in today's standards, it wouldn't hold up as well. But it was meant to be at that time of history, and it was a great prototype for the future of the X-Men movies and all of comic book movies. It has good action, it's a simple story, and it's just something that I was looking forward to as a kid. I saw it when I was 15 years old, and even 10 years before this movie came out, I was hoping for an X-Men movie to be made, and at the time, at that age, it really did meet my expectations. It just brings back a lot of memories, but it is a movie that we should really appreciate. At number 5 is the first Deadpool movie, The Merc with the Mouth. This is a movie that I feel everyone was waiting for way after X-Men Origins Wolverine totally butchered the character Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds fought for this movie to be made. It finally happened. We got a sequel. We got a Deadpool 3 coming out, and this is a spin-off to the X-Men franchise, but I feel this is something that the franchise kind of needed. Granted, they had successful films at the beginning of this decade like First Class, Days of Future Past, but we needed something else, and this is the movie I think that really kicked it into gear. Their first rated R film in the franchise, but it made money, it was entertaining. Ryan Reynolds knocked it out of the park once again as a better Deadpool. This movie doesn't take itself seriously, but it's kind of the point of that. That's what makes it so fun to watch. I loved it. I loved every moment of it. And Deadpool 2, like I mentioned before, it may not be as good as this one, but it's still just fun to watch and kind of a breath of fresh air compared to the darker themes of the other X-Men movies. Coming in at number 4 is X-Men First Class. Now, this was a movie I was really skeptical about when I first heard it was being made, but boy was I proven wrong. It ended up being one of my favorite X-Men films at that time. I just love what Matthew Vaughn brought to the screen. It takes place in the 1960s. It has a really James Bond feel to it, and they take the oldest X-Men comic, X-Men First Class, and recreates it on the screen. It starts the franchise from scratch. This franchise has so many continuity errors, but it tries its best at starting at the beginning. You're introduced to all these characters, but they're utilized with a perfect amount of time for each character. And this is the first time we see Xavier and Magneto meeting for the first time. You get to learn more about their characters, what started their friendship, why they started their rivalry, why do they not like each other. You just learn the origins of all these characters. And really, this is a movie I think if you haven't watched any of the X-Men films, this is a great place to start off at. Coming in at number 3 is X2, X-Men United. By far the best in the original X-Men trilogy. This is one film that I feel should be looked back on as one of the best superhero films made of the 21st century. The theming and the hatred of mutants is there, the action, the actors, the special effects, the score, everything about this film felt like an event when I watched it. It totally blew my expectations away when I saw this movie after seeing the first film. I didn't know what to expect, but it certainly wasn't this. It was just eye-opening to watch everything from beginning to end. My favorite scene, I have to say, is probably the beginning when Nightcrawler's in the White House. I knew when I saw that moment I'd be in for something special. And this is a sequel where kind of the good guys don't really win in the end, and you don't see that a lot in superhero movies up until Endgame in a certain sense. And I compare this movie sometimes to Empire Strikes Back, not in terms of just the bad guys not really winning in the end, but just the sheer epicness and how it surpasses the original. And really, this is a film that I feel that people should look back upon as one of the superhero films that really molded into what we see today on the screen. At number 2 is Logan. Now, other than my number 1 pick, this is probably by far one of the best superhero films that we have seen in the last 20 years. I mean, to some, it's not even considered a superhero film. It's just like a drama. It's a film noir. It's a Western in a way. It's so many things. It's once again directed by James Mangold, and he does a superb job with his directing, with the screenplay, with the action, with the dialogue. Everything is more than you could ever hope for in an X-Men film or any superhero film. And this was also another movie I was kind of skeptical on when I first saw the previews of it, and I was like, let's see what happens. I was blown away, and I just was blown away by Hugh Jackman's performance, probably one of the best performances that I've ever seen him do of all of his times playing Wolverine. And this was a movie, once again, that there are a lot of action scenes, but there are a lot of dialogue scenes, but it really kept me interested to see where this was going. And it was just probably one of the best films of 2017. It is just one movie that everyone, once again, should look back upon as seeing as a great superhero film. And at number 1 is X-Men, Days of Future Past. I think by far this is probably one of the best X-Men films. Just the storyline of combining the original X-Men trilogy with the new X-Men series that was going on in the 2010s, and just seeing all these characters interact with each other. It was just something I could have only dreamed of, and I was just so glad they were making it finally happen on the big screen. And of course, if you're an X-Men fan, you do know Kitty Pryde was the one sent back in time to change everything, but you got Wolverine, and of course it makes sense since he is the biggest star of the X-Men franchise. But other than that, everything's great about this film. The visuals are fantastic, the set pieces are amazing. The fact that it takes place in the 1970s, it just feels like that era. And you had a little bit of comedy that's mixed in with it. It has that grim, dark feel to it. It does also feel like an Empire Strikes Back type of sequel too, but of course they win at the end. And just so many characters are utilized in this film, but with a perfect amount, being over 2 hours. And it's just everything that an X-Men fan could really hope for. I mean, maybe not everyone will agree, but I feel it's everything I would have wanted. And thanks to all the previous X-Men films that came out before that, it's just something that we've been really investing our time into, and I think it was worth the wait. And that was my ranking for the 12 X-Men movies. I hope you enjoyed that. Once again, tell me in the comments below, how would you rank these 12 movies? What would be your number 1? I'd love to hear it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe. I hope you'll have a great night. This is Ride the Movie Guy saying I'll see you at the movies.